I found that purpose usually isn't something that comes to us in a single lightning bolt epiphany moment where we just have this vision of what we're supposed to do with our lives. Purpose has often come to me in very unconventional ways that I've kind of learned through experience over the years. And today, in this 3-part series for this week, I'm going to talk about purpose and how I've come to understand my sense of purpose and reason for being, and ways that you can try it for yourself as well. Hello, I'm Dr. Dave, and welcome to the Good Life Lab, where we experiment and explore tools, tips, and techniques for boosting our mental health. And I just want to welcome you here today, and I hope you enjoy this discussion on purpose as part of this 4-week series on how to boost your mental health. But first, I want to talk about my journey with purpose and how kind of a history of how I've discovered purpose for myself and what led me to search for purpose. My longing for purpose and journey with purpose really started pretty early in my life. I remember around 9 or 10, there was kind of a turning point in my life where I started to realize that I was gay, and that created a deep sense of questioning in my life because I was different. And so from that age on, I lived pretty much a carefree life up to that point, and then things got kind of serious and I started to question the meaning of life at 9 and 10. And so that led me on this, kind of dark path for 9, 10 years. I don't think people could have seen it necessarily. I was a pretty high-functioning melancholic for those years until I got to college, where that search for longing for something greater in my life came to a head. I think my freshman year of college, I determined to investigate this more. And so when I got to college, I looked for people that were similar to me. I didn't drink. I was focused on pre-med at the time and also active, played soccer. So I was looking for people who were kind of similar to me in that way, and came across a faith community that got me engaged. And I think at that point too, I was like, I wanted something that not only gave me a sense of purpose, but that gave me maybe a way out of being gay. I didn't want to be gay at the time. Now this is 3 or 4 decades ago, thinking about this. And so I tried to, lean into this faith community, and that gave me a greater sense of purpose. And that lasted for 20 some years until my efforts to not be gay kind of came to an end. And so that was around 40. And so it was really about 40 when I started to kind of look to other things to help me find purpose. And even during that time of, my faith, when I was more involved with my faith and faith community, I think I felt more purposeful, but I also longed for something that would kind of embrace me as who I was as a gay man, but then also gave me a greater sense of purpose. So for a while, I think my purpose did come through my faith community, but I got to this point at 40 where that wasn't satisfying to me anymore. So I started to create these year-long projects, which really helped me frame many experiments around purpose. And so I'll talk about each project that I created to help me bring that sense of purpose. But before I get into the specifics of how I found purpose after 40, I'm going to share with you the framework for this 3-part series on purpose. So this first video is all about how I found purpose through projects, creating projects for myself, usually year-long projects, but sometimes shorter than that. The second video gets into this concept called ikigai, which is a Japanese concept, which means reason for being. And I came to this kind of later in life, but it gave me a framework for understanding how to connect with the sense of purpose in my life. So this ikigai concept, I'll explain this in the next video. And then the third part of this series will be around creating a mission statement, which has really also helped me find some focus and direction at different points in my life. So I've done mission statements throughout my life. I have a process that I've gone through recently that's clarified again what my mission is, and that gives me, again, a sense of purpose. So those are the kind of 3 maybe unconventional ways that I found purpose, is through projects, through this concept called ikigai, which means reason for being, and then also a mission statement, a purpose statement, which helps me coalesce a lot of my thoughts into one statement. So first I'll talk about projects and how they've helped me find a greater sense of purpose. Why projects? Why would you think projects help bring purpose? For me, the projects, they're usually year-long, like I said, bring a sense of focus and direction. They've helped me kind of generate ideas, reflect on what's important to me, and then translate that into actionable items. And by doing that, by creating these greater action items and goals, that brings a sense of purpose to my everyday life, more meaning. When we think of our lives in terms of 80, 90 years, that's a long time. So it's really hard to think about what's this great purpose for my 80, 90 years. So for me, I've broken that down into more manageable kind of time frames or periods and think about purpose. What's my purpose for this year? What would give me greater meaning for this year? And that's been connected to over my lifetime to bringing me closer to a greater sense of purpose for my life. That's kind of the approach I've used in creating these projects and why I use these projects as tools for getting me closer to purpose. With projects, I'm connecting what's most important to me with then how to live that out in real time. And so these projects have helped me kind of take my ideas into action. I think purpose isn't just about imagining what you think is important. It's also taking action on what's important to you. So I just want to give you a quick overview of the projects I've done to bring up purpose in my life. The first major project I did was in my 30s, actually, and I had always wanted to bike across the country. So I grabbed a bunch of soccer buddies of mine, and we biked from the coast of San Francisco to the coast of Jersey. It took us 3,700 miles in a couple months in camper vans. And that was kind of my first biggest project I did around purpose. And it really just a desire I had. I wanted to try it. I wanted to also, it became a fundraiser for the college I was working with. But that was the first major project I did. The second project I did was when I turned 40. I'd always wanted to write a book. And so for that year, I decided to not cut my hair like Samson from the Bible to have this energy and strength to write this book. And I also decided to not watch any media for that year to have the time to write the book. I tell this story, and I'll connect you to this other link to my story, this greater story of this year of writing this book. But I really thought this is my last-ditch effort to not be gay. I had tried for 20 some years through prayer and Bible reading and therapy and everything to not be gay. And so I think this is my last-ditch effort at 40 to say, I'm going to try to lean into everything I could think of to not be gay as part of this project and reflect and pray and all those things that you do that I did to not be gay, and just try it again for one last college try to not be gay. I think that was kind of part of what was behind this project. So by the end of that year, I was still gay, surprisingly. I did have a finished book. So I thought it was a success in that way. The project actually helped me decide to eventually embrace myself as a gay man, leave the work I was in, which is in a conservative Christian community, and then begin my next chapter in life, which turned out to be another project around 42, 43, which took me around the world. I created this, I called it 12 Months to Live. And each month for that year, I would do something different related to exploring my passion, my interest, finding out what's next in my life. It was also important during that 12 Months to Live project that I leaned into my gay identity and began to come out more fully. So that was kind of one of the threads of this year-long project for myself. And I did. By the end of that, I had a better sense of what I wanted to do with my life, which got me closer to my greater purpose. But it also made me realize I really like the higher ed world. And so I decided to move back into that world. That was my 12 Months to Live project. And after that, as I was kind of, after a couple years of freelancing, trying to get back into higher education, I was still lacking kind of more focused purpose. So I decided to create another project at 46, which I had three intentions related to that project, which were love and life, to find a partner in crime, to kind of be more comfortable with dating men for the first time. The second intention was to find peace with God. I'd still had some lingering faith issues and trying to decide how I wanted to approach my faith. And then the third intention for that year was to find a job I liked, kind of back into higher education. And so by the end of that period, I actually did see those three intentions over, a 2-year period come to fruition. So that was all part of Project 46. I've done a lot of work in this area of Project 46, talking about it, so there's a lot of information I can share with you. The purpose of this video is really to give you a glimpse of the different projects I've tried to find greater purpose. So kind of an overview. So I'll provide links to more details about Project 46 and how that turned out for me in the description below. The last major project I did was in my early 50s, was called The Gratitude Visit. And that project, each month for that year, I wrote a letter of gratitude to somebody and delivered it to them and read it to them, because based on this research that says that if you write a letter of gratitude to somebody and deliver it to them, read it to them, your mood as well as the person you read the letter to is boosted for up to a month afterwards. So those are kind of a summary of some of my projects I've done to bring greater purpose and why they're important. And I'll give you some links below to how you can create your own project, which is kind of the focus of this channel, is to help you develop projects around happiness and purpose and meaning and just having a better life, having a good life. So you'll see more information about that in my channel in the description below. Common threads about these projects and what they did for me. Each project in and of itself gave me a kind of reason for being during that period of time. So usually year-long projects. I often found that when I was wandering or feeling like I was languishing, come back to this idea of what do I want to learn? What's most important to me at this point in my life, and created this project to help me focus and frame those goals into something meaningful. I also realized that projects weren't just challenges for myself. They were experiments in meaning making and trying to make sense of life and what was most important to me. So they kind of brought me further along in that area as well, meaning making. And the projects were really practical ways that I found to experiment with purpose and what was most important to me. They became very practical tools for experimenting with happiness and meaning. So for this first video and around projects that lead to purpose, you don't need this ultimate epiphany. You can start with just a project, something that you can experiment with to see if this is what you want to do with your life or what you're called to do with your life, or that expresses your authentic self in some way. Purpose can grow in reflection and discussion and conversation with people, but it also takes action. So you can't just, I don't think you can just imagine what your purpose is and then you kind of realize it. Maybe that happens occasionally, but not very often. Really, it takes experimenting with what your desires are, taking actions on your passion, seeing if it's something you want to do for this next season of your life. So just remember, purpose grows in action, not just in reflection. As I mentioned, you can learn all about my projects and how they've helped me move forward in my life on my website, and on these YouTube videos, you can see more about that and how I've created purpose out of my projects. I'll provide you with links below to give you access to a free downloadable Project 46 workbook, and also a video series around that and how I saw life change happen from over a 10-year period. Don't forget there's some free resources below and also some digital products that might help you create your own project and help you move further along in your quest to have a good life. So check out those resources in the description below. I'm also working on an upcoming series I'm calling the Breadcrumb Chronicles. Right now it's a 7-volume set on a lot of these projects that I've talked about, the details about them, how they've brought me further along, and just my story, my coming out story for many years, and then how I embraced my identity as a gay man, my faith issues, and then really around purpose and meaning as well. So I'm going to be unveiling these books over the next couple months and years, along with some challenges that you can try for yourself, and also access to community that I'm building around some of these concepts to have a better life, and how we can be happier and have more meaningful lives as gay, queer men. So please kind of look out for additional resources in this area of developing a good life for yourself, and what that means related to these 4 pillars I've been talking about: belonging, transcendence, purpose, or reason for being, and also story, authenticity, and vulnerability. I started this 4-week series reflecting on my own mental health and well-being in 4 areas: belonging or relationships, transcendence or awe and wonder, and then purpose, which is reason for being, and then the last area is story, or am I being authentic and vulnerable with other people. So those 4 areas I often evaluate on a scale of 1 to 10 how I'm doing, just to check in with myself to see if there's anything I'm kind of missing that I need to emphasize. And at the beginning of the series a couple weeks ago, I realized that my relationships were lacking, and I gave myself like a 5 out of 10. And the following week was much better in that area, and so were the other pillars. This week I've found that I've kind of gone back to, I went from 5 and 6 to I think an 8 last week, and now I'm kind of back to maybe 6, 7 in terms of relationships. So it helps me monitor how I'm doing and what I need to do to lean into those different areas of my life. So I'd encourage you to do the same as you walk through this series. Just keep checking in with yourself in these 4 areas of connectedness with other people, connectedness with something greater than yourself, connectedness with purpose, and then are you connecting with yourself? So think about those 4 areas as you move forward in trying to boost your mental health. Thank you for joining me and have a great rest of your week. Look out for the next video in this series on ikigai and how you can find greater reason for being in your life.